Imagine for a moment what happens inside your brain the moment someone deeply hurts you. There's a surge of emotions: anger, pain, a craving for revenge. These reactions are primal, wired into our neural circuits for survival. But here's the truth: reacting with revenge doesn't heal. It hijacks your nervous system and keeps you trapped in a loop of suffering. Today, I want to share with you a neuroscience-backed strategy not to retaliate or seek revenge, but a way to reclaim your power, reset your mind, and transform pain into profound strength. Because the path to true resilience isn't through the destruction of others, but through mastering your own inner state. When someone hurts you badly, the very first step in responding effectively is to recognize and acknowledge your emotional response. This might sound simple, but it is actually one of the most powerful and challenging things to do. Often our initial impulse when hurt is to push away or deny what we are feeling because pain, anger, betrayal, or sadness can feel overwhelming, uncomfortable, or even shameful. We might tell ourselves to just get over it, or we might immediately want to react without truly understanding what is happening inside us. Yet, neuroscience and psychology show that the moment you truly recognize and accept your emotional state, you begin to take back control. Our brains are wired to react automatically to perceived threats. When someone hurts us, the amygdala, the brain's emotional alarm center, fires up quickly, triggering a cascade of physiological responses: increased heart rate, rapid breathing, muscle tension, and a flood of stress hormones like cortisol. This reaction is designed to prepare us for fight, flight, or freeze. However, if we ignore or suppress these emotions, they don't simply disappear. Instead, they become trapped in the nervous system, which can lead to chronic stress, anxiety, or even physical illness over time. Acknowledging your emotions means giving yourself permission to feel them fully, without judgment or self-criticism. This act of self-honesty creates a pause, a moment of awareness, where you can observe your inner experience rather than being swept away by it. It's important to understand that emotions are information. They tell you about your boundaries, your values, and what matters deeply to you. If someone has hurt you, the pain you feel is not just about the event itself. It's about the meaning you assign to it and how it intersects with your sense of self. When you label your emotions, whether it's anger, sadness, disappointment, or betrayal, you engage the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for reasoning and decision-making. Research shows that simply naming what you are feeling can reduce the intensity of those emotions by calming the amygdala's reactivity. This process, known as affect labeling, helps shift you from a reactive state into one of mindful awareness. For example, instead of telling yourself, "I'm furious," you might say, "I notice that I feel angry and hurt right now." This subtle shift in language helps you create a separation between yourself and the emotion, allowing you to observe it rather than be overwhelmed by it. Over time, this practice builds emotional resilience and strengthens your capacity to respond rather than react. It's also essential to recognize that emotions are complex and often layered. You might feel anger on the surface, but beneath it lies sadness or fear. Take the time to explore what each feeling is telling you. Ask yourself questions like, what exactly am I feeling? What triggered this? What does this emotion want me to know about my needs or boundaries? This kind of introspection deepens your understanding of your internal world and reduces the confusion that often fuels impulsive reactions. Acknowledging your emotions also means being compassionate with yourself. When you are hurt, it's easy to slip into self-blame or to think that feeling vulnerable is a sign of weakness. But vulnerability is actually a form of courage. Allow yourself to experience your pain fully and treat yourself with the same kindness you would offer a close friend who is suffering. This self-compassion helps soothe the nervous system and creates a foundation for healing. In practical terms, this acknowledgement can be supported by simple habits such as journaling your thoughts and feelings, talking to a trusted friend or therapist, or spending quiet time in reflection. The key is to create a safe internal environment where your emotions can surface without fear of rejection or punishment. When you recognize and honor your emotional response to being hurt, you also empower yourself to make conscious choices about how to move forward. Instead of acting out of instinct or bitterness, you gain the clarity to decide what is best for your well-being. This first step, though it requires courage and patience, is fundamental because it interrupts the automatic cycle of pain and retaliation that so often perpetuates suffering. By facing your emotions head-on, you begin the process of transforming hurt into insight. This self-awareness sets the stage for the next steps in healing and growth, giving you the tools to regain control over your mind and your life. Activating your parasympathetic nervous system through controlled breathing is a crucial step when dealing with intense emotional pain caused by someone hurting you badly. The parasympathetic nervous system is often called the rest and digest system because it helps calm the body and restore balance after a stressful event. When you experience hurt or trauma, your sympathetic nervous system, the part responsible for the fight or flight response, takes over, flooding your body with adrenaline and cortisol. This prepares you to either confront the threat or escape from it, but it also places your body in a state of heightened arousal that can be exhausting and harmful if sustained. Controlled breathing serves as a direct way to shift this balance, calming the sympathetic overdrive and engaging your parasympathetic system to promote relaxation and emotional regulation. Breathing is unique because it is one of the few autonomic functions that you can consciously control. While your heart beats and digestion happens automatically, you can decide to slow down your breath, deepen it, and make it more rhythmic. This voluntary control over breathing allows you to influence your nervous system directly. When you deliberately slow your breath, you send signals to the brainstem that it is safe to reduce the stress response, which lowers heart rate, decreases muscle tension, and promotes a sense of calm. One of the most effective breathing techniques for activating the parasympathetic nervous system is diaphragmatic breathing, also known as belly breathing. This involves breathing deeply into the abdomen rather than shallowly into the chest. When done correctly, your belly rises on the inhale and falls on the exhale. This deeper breathing pattern increases oxygen exchange and stimulates the vagus nerve, a key component of the parasympathetic nervous system. The vagus nerve runs from the brainstem down to various organs and helps regulate heart rate and digestion. Stimulating this nerve through breathwork promotes relaxation and reduces the feeling of threat. When you find yourself overwhelmed by the pain of being hurt, your breathing often becomes rapid and shallow, which exacerbates anxiety and keeps you stuck in the fight or flight mode. By consciously slowing your breath, aiming for about 5 to 6 breaths per minute, you create a physiological shift. This slower rhythm enhances heart rate variability, which is a marker of a healthy and adaptable nervous system. Greater heart rate variability is linked with emotional resilience, better stress management, and improved cognitive function. The practice of controlled breathing also provides a powerful tool to anchor your attention in the present moment. When emotions surge, the mind tends to ruminate on past wounds or future fears, escalating distress. Focusing on your breath draws your awareness away from these spirals and back into your body, promoting mindfulness. This mindful state allows you to observe your feelings without becoming overwhelmed, making it easier to respond with clarity instead of reacting impulsively. Implementing controlled breathing can be simple and accessible. One popular technique is the 4-7-8 breath. Inhale quietly through your nose for a count of 4. Hold the breath for 7 counts. And then exhale audibly through your mouth for 8 counts. Repeating the cycle several times helps calm the nervous system quickly. Another method is box breathing, where you inhale for 4 counts, hold for 4, exhale for 4, and hold the breath out for 4 before repeating. Both techniques are used by elite athletes, military personnel, and therapists to maintain composure under stress. It's important to approach this breathing practice with patience and gentleness. At first, if you're very anxious or emotionally overwhelmed, slowing your breath might feel unfamiliar or uncomfortable. You might notice your mind wandering or feel an urge to rush. This is completely normal. The goal is not to force anything, but to gradually build the habit of returning to your breath as a calming anchor. Controlled breathing also interacts with your brain chemistry. When you engage the parasympathetic nervous system, your body produces more gamma-aminobutyric acid, GABA, an inhibitory neurotransmitter that reduces neuronal excitability. This biochemical effect helps diminish feelings of anxiety and promotes a state of calm alertness, allowing you to think more clearly and make better decisions in moments of emotional turmoil. Consistent practice of controlled breathing can rewire your nervous system over time. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to change in response to experience, means that regular calming practices build stronger neural pathways that favor emotional regulation and resilience. In other words, the more you train your breath and parasympathetic activation, the easier it becomes to stay calm when faced with hurt or conflict. By using controlled breathing to activate your parasympathetic nervous system, you gain a powerful physiological tool to manage your emotional pain. It interrupts the automatic stress response and provides a pathway to regain control over your mind and body, fostering a space where healing can begin. This is not about denying the hurt or bottling up your feelings. It's about creating the internal conditions necessary to process those feelings without being overwhelmed by them. Creating mental space by practicing mindfulness or meditation is a transformative approach when you have been deeply hurt by someone. Often our minds become cluttered with an overwhelming flood of thoughts and emotions following an emotional injury. The hurt triggers a cascade of memories, what-ifs, and future fears that keep replaying endlessly, making it almost impossible to find peace or clarity. This mental turmoil not only prolongs the pain but also interferes with your ability to respond thoughtfully. Mindfulness and meditation offer you a way to step back from this storm and create the necessary mental space to observe your experience without being consumed by it. When you practice mindfulness, you cultivate a heightened awareness of the present moment. Instead of being swept away by judgments, regrets, or fantasies about revenge, you learn to witness your thoughts and feelings as they arise and pass. This shift from identification to observation is powerful. It transforms your relationship with the pain from one of entanglement to one of curiosity and acceptance. Neuroscience reveals that mindfulness engages regions of the brain responsible for self-regulation, such as the prefrontal cortex, enhancing your capacity to manage emotional responses instead of being overwhelmed by them. Meditation, as a formal practice of mindfulness, trains your brain to focus and refocus on a chosen object, often the breath, a mantra, or bodily sensations. Initially, your mind may wander into stories about the hurt or judgments about the person who caused it. This is natural. The practice is to gently notice these distractions without self-criticism and return your attention to your anchor. Over time, this process strengthens your ability to disengage from unhelpful mental patterns and cultivate a calm, centered presence. Creating mental space is crucial because pain and emotional distress often provoke a state known as cognitive fusion, where you become fused or entangled with your thoughts and feelings, treating them as absolute truths. For example, you might believe I am worthless because they hurt me, or I must get revenge to feel better. These thoughts fuel suffering and reactive behavior. Mindfulness helps you recognize that thoughts are just mental events, not facts, allowing you to separate your identity from the pain. This practice also interrupts the habitual cycle of rumination. Rumination is the tendency to repeatedly think about the causes and consequences of distressing events, which intensifies negative emotions and impairs problem solving. By creating mental space, you break free from this loop, you gain clarity to see the situation more objectively, and make wiser decisions about how to proceed. Physiologically, mindfulness and meditation have been shown to reduce activity in the amygdala, the brain's threat center, and enhance connectivity between the prefrontal cortex and amygdala. This neural balance supports emotional regulation and resilience. Regular meditation increases gray matter density in areas associated with emotional control, compassion, and self-awareness. These brain changes reinforce your capacity to handle emotional pain with equanimity. In practical terms, beginning a mindfulness practice can be simple. Start with just a few minutes a day, focusing on your breath or the sensations of your body sitting or walking. When painful thoughts or feelings arise, acknowledge them gently as you would clouds passing through the sky, then return to your focus. You don't need to suppress or avoid the pain. Instead, you learn to hold it with openness and kindness. You can also extend mindfulness into daily life, bringing present moment awareness to ordinary activities like eating, showering, or walking. This helps you anchor your attention in reality rather than getting lost in stories of hurt and revenge. As your mindfulness deepens, you cultivate a spaciousness within that is not dependent on external circumstances, making you less reactive and more grounded. Creating mental space through these practices also opens the door to greater self-compassion. When you observe your pain mindfully, you can soften self-judgment and harsh inner criticism that often accompany hurt. This gentle attitude promotes healing and fosters a sense of safety within yourself. Another important aspect is that mental space allows you to gain perspective. Instead of being overwhelmed by the immediacy of the hurt, you can step back and see the bigger picture, your values, your goals, and the kind of person you want to become. This perspective enables you to respond in ways that align with your deeper intentions rather than being driven by short-term emotional reactions. Finally, cultivating this mental space helps you detach from the need for external validation or revenge. When you are centered and mindful, you realize that your peace and strength come from within, not from the actions or opinions of others. This inner space creates freedom and resilience, which are essential for true healing after being hurt. Setting firm boundaries after being hurt is essential for protecting your emotional well-being and reclaiming your power. When someone hurts you deeply, the natural response might be to withdraw, seek revenge, or suppress your feelings. However, none of these reactions effectively safeguard your peace or foster long-term healing. Instead, establishing clear boundaries creates a necessary framework that defines how others can treat you, ensuring you don't remain vulnerable to further harm. Boundaries serve as a protective barrier that communicates your self-worth and helps you maintain control over your emotional environment. Boundaries are not just about saying no to others, but also about saying yes to yourself. They delineate what is acceptable and unacceptable in your interactions and relationships. This clarity is empowering because it prevents the ambiguity that often leads to resentment, confusion, and repeated pain. When someone crosses your boundary, it signals that the existing dynamic is unhealthy and needs adjustment. By setting limits, you create space to heal, reflect, and rebuild your strength without being subjected to ongoing harm or manipulation. Importantly, boundaries are a form of self-respect and self-care. They demonstrate that you value your emotional safety and are willing to take action to protect it. Many people struggle with boundary setting because they fear conflict, rejection, or appearing selfish. However, failing to set boundaries can lead to emotional exhaustion, burnout, and a gradual erosion of self-esteem. The more you allow others to infringe upon your limits, the more you teach them what you will tolerate, often unconsciously inviting repeated mistreatment. Establishing boundaries requires clarity about your values, needs, and limits. This involves honest self-reflection to identify what behaviors or attitudes cause you distress and what you require to feel safe and respected. For example, you might decide that you will no longer engage with someone who constantly criticizes or belittles you, or you might limit your contact with toxic individuals to protect your mental health. Boundaries can be physical, emotional, or even digital, such as choosing not to respond to harmful messages or avoiding certain topics that trigger pain. Communicating boundaries effectively is critical. It's not enough to set a boundary internally, you must express it clearly and assertively to the person involved. This doesn't mean being aggressive or confrontational, but rather being firm and respectful. Using I statements helps keep the focus on your feelings and needs without blaming or accusing. For instance, you might say, "I feel hurt when you speak to me that way, and I need us to communicate respectfully, or I'm not comfortable discussing this topic, so I'd prefer to change the subject." Once boundaries are set, enforcing them consistently is vital. This consistency reinforces the seriousness of your limits and discourages others from testing or disregarding them. If someone violates a boundary, it's important to follow through with appropriate consequences, such as ending a conversation, taking a break from the relationship, or seeking support. This shows that your boundaries are not negotiable and that you prioritize your well-being above maintaining harmful dynamics. Setting boundaries also promotes healthier relationships. When you clearly define what you will and won't accept, you attract people who respect and honor those limits. This mutual respect lays the foundation for trust, authenticity, and emotional safety. On the other hand, those unwilling or unable to respect your boundaries reveal themselves, allowing you to distance yourself from toxic influences and invest your energy in nurturing positive connections. Boundaries support your emotional regulation. By controlling the inputs you receive, whether through conversations, behaviors, or environments, you reduce unnecessary stress and emotional reactivity. This regulation is crucial after being hurt because it helps prevent re-traumatization and creates a stable internal environment conducive to healing and growth. It's also worth noting that setting boundaries is a dynamic process. As you heal and evolve, your needs and limits may shift. Regularly checking in with yourself and adjusting your boundaries accordingly ensures they remain aligned with your current state and goals. This ongoing self-awareness fosters resilience and adaptability, allowing you to navigate relationships with greater wisdom and confidence. In the process of boundary setting, you may encounter resistance or pushback from others who are accustomed to previous patterns of interaction. This is a natural response, as change can threaten established dynamics. Staying committed to your boundaries despite this resistance is a testament to your strength and self-respect. Seeking support from trusted friends, mentors, or professionals can provide guidance and encouragement as you reinforce your limits. Boundaries are about creating a foundation where your emotional safety is prioritized, enabling you to move forward with clarity and confidence. They are a declaration that you will no longer tolerate harm and that your peace matters. By setting and maintaining firm boundaries, you empower yourself to heal, grow, and thrive beyond the pain inflicted by others. Forgiveness is one of the most misunderstood and powerful tools you can wield after someone has hurt you deeply. Many people equate forgiveness with condoning the harmful behavior or letting the offender off the hook, but that is far from the truth. Forgiveness is an intentional act of freeing yourself from the burden of resentment, anger, and bitterness that keeps you trapped in a cycle of pain. When you hold on to grudges and the desire for revenge, you remain tethered to the source of your suffering, which drains your emotional energy and impedes your growth. Choosing to forgive is not about the other person, it's about reclaiming your peace and emotional freedom. At its core, forgiveness is a conscious decision to release negative emotions tied to a hurtful event or individual. This release doesn't mean forgetting what happened or pretending the pain didn't exist. Instead, it's a way to acknowledge your suffering without letting it define your present and future. Neuroscience shows that harboring resentment activates the brain's threat systems, keeping you in a prolonged state of stress and hypervigilance. Forgiveness helps deactivate these systems, allowing your brain and body to relax and recover. This physiological shift is essential for your mental and physical well-being. Forgiving someone who has caused you significant harm can be incredibly challenging, especially when the wound feels fresh or when the offender shows no remorse. It requires vulnerability and courage to confront your pain without using it as a weapon against others. The process often begins with self-reflection, where you examine your emotions and understand how holding on to anger affects your life. By recognizing the personal cost of resentment, you can motivate yourself toward forgiveness as a form of self-care. It's important to understand that forgiveness is a process, not a one-time event. It unfolds gradually as you work through your feelings, sometimes revisiting pain and anger before releasing them. This journey requires patience and compassion for yourself. You may find that you need support through counseling, spiritual guidance, or conversations with trusted friends. These resources can provide perspective and encouragement as you navigate the complex emotions involved. Forgiveness also involves setting realistic expectations. It doesn't guarantee reconciliation or that the other person will change. Sometimes, the healthiest choice is to forgive internally while maintaining boundaries or even ending the relationship to protect yourself. Forgiveness is about your inner liberation, not about repairing external circumstances. Holding on to the hope of change can trap you in a cycle of disappointment and continued hurt. Forgiveness cultivates empathy and understanding. This doesn't mean excusing bad behavior, but recognizing that everyone, including the person who hurt you, is fallible and often acting from their own pain or limitations. Developing empathy can soften the intensity of your negative emotions, making forgiveness more accessible. It shifts your perspective from victimhood toward a more empowered and compassionate stance. Research supports that practicing forgiveness improves mental health outcomes, including reducing depression, anxiety, and stress, while increasing feelings of happiness and life satisfaction. Forgiveness also benefits physical health by lowering blood pressure and improving immune function. These benefits highlight how deeply interconnected our emotional state is with our overall well-being. Forgiving yourself is another vital aspect of this process. Sometimes after being hurt, we carry misplaced guilt or shame, believing we somehow contributed to the pain or failed to prevent it. Self-forgiveness releases these burdens, allowing you to heal fully and move forward without the weight of self-blame. It reinforces your worth and capacity for growth. In practical terms, you can begin cultivating forgiveness by practicing mindfulness to become aware of your resentful thoughts without judgment. Journaling your feelings, writing a letter to the person, without necessarily sending it, or engaging in contemplative prayer or meditation can facilitate emotional release. Affirmations that reinforce your choice to forgive and let go can also support this transformation. Forgiveness empowers you to break free from the chains of past hurts and reclaim control over your emotional life. It transforms pain into a source of strength and resilience rather than ongoing suffering. By choosing forgiveness, you make a radical commitment to your own peace and well-being, refusing to allow someone else's actions to dictate your happiness. Letting go of control after being hurt is one of the most challenging yet liberating steps you can take on the path to healing. When someone causes you pain, it's natural to want to control the situation, whether that means seeking revenge, trying to change the other person, or obsessing over what happened. This desire for control often stems from a deep-seated need to feel safe and to prevent further harm. However, the truth is that control is largely an illusion, especially over other people's actions and feelings. Clinging to control only prolongs your suffering because it traps you in a cycle of frustration, anxiety, and emotional turmoil. When you release the need to control outcomes, you allow yourself to surrender to the reality of the situation as it is, rather than how you wish it would be. This surrender is not about giving up or accepting injustice, rather it's about recognizing what is within your power and what isn't. The act of letting go opens space for healing because it stops the mental and emotional energy drain caused by resistance. It invites peace by redirecting your focus from external circumstances to your internal state, where true resilience and growth reside. Controlling thoughts and emotions after being hurt can lead to rumination, where you replay the incident over and over, searching for answers or ways to fix what went wrong. This mental loop intensifies emotional pain and often distorts reality, making you feel more trapped than you actually are. Letting go means consciously interrupting this cycle. It means practicing acceptance of the feelings you have: anger, sadness, betrayal, without judgment and without trying to suppress or fix them immediately. Allowing yourself to fully experience your emotions is a critical step toward processing and eventually releasing them. Letting go also means acknowledging that you cannot change the past, and trying to do so only causes more distress. While you can influence your future actions and choices, the past remains fixed. When you accept this, you free yourself from the burden of regret and what-if thinking. This acceptance fosters emotional clarity and helps you make decisions based on your present reality, not on unresolved pain or fantasies of revenge. Another important aspect of letting go of control is trusting the process of life and, if you believe spiritually, trusting a higher power or the universe. This trust does not guarantee that everything will turn out perfectly, but affirms your faith in your ability to adapt and in the natural unfolding of events. It can bring comfort and reduce anxiety, reminding you that not everything rests on your shoulders alone. Practically, letting go involves shifting your focus from external factors to internal growth. This could mean engaging in practices such as meditation, mindfulness, or journaling, which help you observe your thoughts and emotions without becoming overwhelmed by them. It also means setting realistic expectations for yourself and others, understanding that people have limitations, including the person who hurt you. Letting go is closely tied to forgiveness but remains a distinct step. You can begin to release control even if you are not ready to forgive fully. This act of surrender is about reclaiming your personal power and not allowing someone else's actions to dominate your emotional landscape. It's an affirmation that your life is more than the pain inflicted by others. It's natural to face resistance when you try to let go of control because it feels like stepping into uncertainty and vulnerability. However, staying stuck in control only deepens emotional wounds. Embracing uncertainty,